As Kenny Rogers once said, you gotta know when to hold 'em, and you gotta know when to fold 'em. Unfortunately, this last week, I didn't know when to do either. What up, beasts? Welcome to What Dudes Want to Hear. This week, we will be breaking down Week 5 and previewing the next week. And as we always do, thank you for checking in. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the podcast on Spotify. Let's go. Let's jump right into Week 5. The University of Alabama beat the University of Georgia in Athens, ending Georgia's 33-game win streak at home. And from my perspective right now, it seems that Kalen DeBoer, Alabama's head coach, has some breathing room. He doesn't have the angel of Florida State sitting on his shoulder anymore. He doesn't have that embarrassing Vandy loss sitting on his back anymore. He finally has some breathing room. He knocked off Georgia, did exactly what he needed to do in that scenario, and he can feel good about where he's going forward. And so they had some breathing room last year before they went to Nashville. However, like I just said, that was erased immediately after they played Vanderbilt, which we will get later into the show. But for now, let's still think about Alabama. This was a solid game from Ty Simpson, and Bama absolutely destroyed Georgia on third down. Bama converted 13 third downs, while Georgia only converted 2. So not a great look in that category. And whenever I'm watching this offense now, it no longer feels like the Jalen Milroe show and the Ryan Williams show. Jalen Milroe, last year's quarterback, he was able to connect with Ryan Williams really well, and he was able to run the ball really well. However, this year with Ty Simpson in the pocket, he's able to throw the ball. He's able to dish it when he needs to. If he knows he needs to pick up a run, he doesn't necessarily look like he wants to do it, but he will do what his team needs him to do to get him a first down. And that's exactly what you want in an SEC football team, able to go against these really stingy defenses, these defenses that will let you get 5 yards, but they won't let you get 30, and that is exactly what Ty Simpson needed to do and what he did do on Saturday. Also, this team has really redefined themselves after losing to Florida State. During week 1, in that loss, they came out looking lethargic. They came out looking sad, and Ty Simpson really looked like the only guy on the field that actually wanted to be there that day. However, now the team looks locked in. They look like they want to do their job and play college football on Saturdays, which, as someone who loves college football, that's all you can hope for. And so, with this, I really like to think about Alabama's and Georgia's situation this way. So at one point in every young kid's life, you're going to get pantsed. That's just the way of the world. You know, you're walking down the street, you're at daycare, and all of a sudden your gym shorts are around your ankles. Now, with this experience, do you keep wearing gym shorts or do you invest in a belt? Alabama got pantsed earlier this season by Florida State. They invested in a belt. Georgia just got pantsed in Alabama. And are they going to pull up wearing jeans and a brown leather belt next week? Or are they going to pull up an and one gym shorts straight off the rack at Walmart? That's what we're to see. And so this is now a do or die situation for Georgia. This is, again, only their first loss of the season. And with the 12-team playoff format, not the biggest deal in the world, but they will be playing some hungry teams. And also, this isn't the same Georgia defensive line we're used to. You're not seeing the tackle for losses that you're used to. You're not seeing the amount of sacks. Half of Georgia's defensive lines from the early 2020s are now on the Philadelphia Eagles or on the Houston Texans, and I just don't know if we're going to see another NFL team with defensive line talent like Georgia has produced over the last couple of years. Again, I still think Georgia can easily bounce back from this loss, and this is one of the best teams in the country. That block G still means something. Until Kirby Smart is rolling in his grave, that block G is going to mean something. So don't discount Georgia at all right now. They're still a team that is in the playoff hunt. Speaking of other teams that are in the playoff hunt, man, Oregon took over Happy Valley on Saturday night. 110,000 fans, all dressed in white. Doesn't matter. Penn State, a national championship, like top 5 odds, doesn't matter. Don't look now, but Oregon's on a mission. And they had a new quarterback that they were starting, Dante Moore. He played a season at UCLA, looked decent, sat behind Dylan Gabriel last year. Have this guy in the biggest pressure spot of his life, doesn't matter. able to casually take it to overtime, able to rely on the defense to win the game. So good for Oregon. And they have a star wide receiver out, but we'll just, we'll throw the ball to a guy born in 2007 for almost 100 yards against one of what's supposed to be the most difficult defenses to get through in the country. We'll just throw it to him a couple times and hopefully we win the game, and win the game they did. Dan Lanning has the Big Ten's number in regular season games. He did look unfortunate with Oregon in the Rose Bowl last year, but as far as regular season goes, this guy is a legend killer. And again, though, Oregon's next step is playoff success, and we can't gauge that until December, but in the other months that end with R, they're looking pretty good. And so just questioning from this game, why won't Penn State keep throwing the ball? Drew Aller can hit his receivers on the deep routes. His wide receivers aren't the greatest in the country. I'm not calling him Jeremiah Smith. I'm not calling him Ryan Williams. I'm not calling him Deion Burks. But they can still get down the field if they need to. Whenever they're throwing a post, that receiver's probably going to be open. So we know they can run. I just don't understand what is holding Penn State back. And watching this game, man, Oregon's edge factor, it won them the game. They looked like the more mentally prepared team. And so also another thing that just shows how much of a psychopath Oregon's head coach Dan Lanning is, he went for it on 7 fourth downs, converted 5 of them in a whiteout in one of the most toxic environments in college sports. And that confidence in your quarterback, in your team to do that is unquantifiable. And later in the season, Penn State plays a stretch of at Iowa, at Ohio State, and versus Indiana. And the way I like to think about this upcoming stretch is Penn State, they're going to a barbershop. They've never been to this barbershop. It's a new barbershop. And they sit down, and the barber, he doesn't look great, but he looks like he's able to cut some hair. And you tell him, man, I want a little off the top. I've got my long, luscious locks growing in the back. Just, clip me up right. And then all of a sudden, Penn State's sitting in that chair, and they see the barber go for a razor. And with this, is Penn State going to let their schedule give them a buzz cut? Or are they going to grab the razor out of the barber's hands, give him some scissors, and say, don't you ever do that to me again, little man. Penn State needs to little man some people, and they just haven't been able to do it yet. So Penn State, until you're able to little man another person, what's stopping you from being little man? Let's send it down to Mississippi. Ole Miss beat LSU. This is a season-defining win for Lane Kiffin. Little Ole Miss, what were they going to do this year without Jackson Dart? Oh, their star quarterback goes off to the NFL. They're going to bring in some new transfers. We'll find some depth. We had a decent quarterback last year. Just to build some more depth, we'll go get a guy from D2. He was a national champion in D2. What does that matter? All that matters is that they started this D2 champion against one of the best teams in the country and got it done. I guess that's all that matters. And so Ole Miss, in this game, they fully stopped the run. The longest LSU run was 10 yards. And with this LSU team, with the location of Baton Rouge, Louisiana in the country, they practically breed offensive linemen there. You can't go to Louisiana, specifically southern Louisiana, without seeing at least 4 300-pounders in a 24-hour span. So I don't understand how LSU's not able to run the ball, but they just haven't figured it out. And is LSU going to figure out how to play complementary football? Throughout Brian Kelly's tenure at LSU, their head coach, it's always been, oh man, the offense looks great. Man, they can really throw the ball, but that defense, they might need to hire a new coordinator. They might need to hit the portal for some defensive guys. And now it just seems to be the complete opposite. That defense looks great, but quarterback, we know he's a little bit banged up, but he needs to be able to get the pass game going so the run game can get going. And neither seem to be fully going right now, and that's a problem for LSU, specifically with where they want to go in the season. Because LSU, they don't want to win 8 games. They don't want to win 10 games. They want to win SEC championships. They want to win national championships. As a head coach going to LSU, that's what you are going to Baton Rouge to do. You aren't going to LSU to go to Tigerland. You aren't going to LSU to drink margaritas and go to the original Canes location. No, you're going to LSU to win national championships. And that's what Brian Kelly does not seem like he's been able to fully put into place. Do I think Brian Kelly can win a national championship? Absolutely, I think he can. Has he proven that he's able to with complementary football? Not yet. To be determined. So let's see where LSU goes from here. Friday night game. I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna get on the couch. I'm gonna sit down, get a little bit of popcorn, order a pizza. Maybe throw a frozen pizza in the oven. I just want to. But I'm sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden, Virginia's up on Florida State, and I'm thinking, no big deal. Florida State, they've looked great this season, and Virginia added another touchdown. And I'm thinking, well, might have a game here. And then Florida State adds a touchdown, and it goes back and forth to overtime. Frozen pizza's gone by now. Papa John's pizza is gone by now. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at the TV in overtime, and Virginia's rushing the field. That poor wide receiver, I think it was Squirrel White that might have gotten trampled. But, man, Virginia won this game. Bad look for Florida State. This next week, when they're playing Miami, which I'll cover later in the show, I thought this was going to be potentially the game of the year, and that loss just puts a stain on their season. Playing in the ACC, you don't have the easiest schedule, but you also don't have the hardest schedule. And so with Florida State's schedule, if they want to make the playoff, they're still going to have to go through a team like Miami. They're still going to have to go through a team like Florida. So I'm interested to see how they're able to regroup from this and what they're able to do from here. Illinois beat USC, by the way. I thought USC going into Illinois was the perfect spot to put Los Angeles back on the map. Not on the map of any other thing except college football, but on the college football map. And they go in there, Jaden Mayava's looking good, but unfortunately they just couldn't really get within a spitting distance of Illinois without Illinois' fumbles at the goal line nearly every time they got near it. USC probably wouldn't have been within 2 touchdowns in this game. Do I think Illinois did a great job at getting back into this game, even when down in the fourth quarter? Absolutely, but with USC, when are we going to hit this pop moment? With Lincoln Riley, we've expected, man, he's got the glitz and glamour of Los Angeles. He's got as much NIL money as he wants down there in Southern California. Why would you leave a job like Oklahoma to go to USC if you're not winning? And I genuinely don't get it. Of course, he's had some defensive struggles in there, but he's supposed to have made the changes to combat that. And unfortunately, with this loss, it just doesn't look like they fully combated it, at least for this season. Next year, who knows? Year after that, who knows? But how long is USC going to be patient for Lincoln Riley to get his train going while they're seeing Oregon dominate the conference, while they're seeing Ohio State win national championships? That's my question for USC, and the jury's still out on it. We haven't seen enough from USC, and I'm just wondering how patient that administration there is going to be in the long run. So, interesting, and man, I'm not going to spend more than 30 seconds on this. Notre Dame clobbered Arkansas. They clobbered them up by nearly 50 at halftime. If you were at this game, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to see people get killed like that on a 53.3 by 120-yard field. But that's what Arkansas fans saw on Saturday. So, sorry. That's all there is to it. I'm sorry you had to see that. My condolences. And we'll see you next year, Arkansas. It happens. It happens. And with Arkansas, that's a frustrated fan base. I'd be frustrated too if I was an Arkansas fan. However, I'm a journalist, so I can't be a fan of everything. Psych, I can, but you don't get to know that. Let's think about the top 5 most frustrated fan bases in college football. And at number 5, who else but Arkansas? And honestly, Arkansas could be higher on this list. However, I'm going to keep them at number 5 because their coach just got fired. And you may be thinking, why would they be lower on the list because their coach got fired? Well, their coach wasn't winning them games. That's why he got fired. And this seems like a good situation for them. Looking at their schedule, I'm not sure if there's another win on the schedule. 5 of their next 7 are ranked SEC opponents, and the other 2 are Auburn and Mississippi State, who aren't chumps, as we've seen. And, man, who would have thought we'd be saying this in 2025? Bobby Petrino, Bobby Football, is the interim head coach at Arkansas, and he's in the running to be their head coach. College football, it is truly the best soap opera in the world. And I've been watching the Dallas Cowboys documentary. College football is the best soap opera in the world. And again, a reason why Arkansas isn't higher on the list is because the Hogs are living on the long shot that John Gruden could be hired there. Do I think he's going to be hired there? I have no clue. I haven't talked to John Gruden recently. I haven't talked to Arkansas administration recently. But with how much Walmart money there is there, with how much Tyson chicken money there is there, I promise you, you have eaten a Tyson chicken dino nugget at one point in your life, and you've been to a Walmart. So they have the money, they have the resources, they have the potential and location of good football players. Can they find their potential? That's the question. And the Hogs at least have future potential. So Hogs, number 5. Sorry. At number 4, we have Kansas State. This was supposed to be a year Kansas State was building to. They sent off Will Howard to Ohio State last year, their quarterback 2 years ago. And, he just casually led them to a national championship, drafted in the 6th round. Whatever. He was a good player at Kansas State, but, we have Avery Johnson. We have a guy who could win a Heisman. Can he win a Heisman? Can he win a Heisman already having lost 3 games this season, one of them to Army? Can he? The Big 12 is still wide open, but Kansas State, your playoff hopes are dead this season. You're not going to get in with 3 losses in the Big 12. So, sorry about that, but see you next year. At number 3, the Florida Gators. The pieces looked like they were finally coming together. It looked like Florida was going to be there, and whoop, rug is just pulled out right from underneath them. It's like Aladdin, except the rug isn't magical, and Aladdin actually doesn't own the rug. They let the University of South Florida, a directional school, get their biggest win of the decade. Not the year, not one of the biggest G5 wins of the season. USF's biggest win of the decade. They looked pitiful against their in-state rival. And whenever you're losing on the field like this, whenever you're losing to Miami, whenever you're losing to South Florida, those losses create recruiting losses. Recruiting losses keep compounding into mental losses, and mental losses just result in more physical losses. Also, Billy Napier. What is Billy Napier doing? Is Billy Napier going to be fired midseason like we thought he was going to be last year? Are all of Billy Napier's players going to rally for him this year and all of a sudden, win 3 or 4 games to end their year? Who knows? Who knows? I sure don't know. Billy Napier probably doesn't know. But at this point, Florida, you're at number 3. See you next year. At number 2, Auburn. The Jackson Arnold experiment has failed. Auburn has possibly the best wide receiver in the nation, and Arnold just can't get him the ball. Cam Coleman looks like an alien out there. He looks like if an Enderman in Minecraft could play football. He teleports across the field. And again, Auburn has had to play 2 extremely tough opponents away from home, back-to-back. I will give them that. And I will give them the fact that they have a great defense. But when is this administration going to break with Hugh Freeze? Also, Auburn still has to play Georgia and Alabama and Vanderbilt and Missouri, all ranked SEC opponents. And, if Auburn can go 2-2 in those remaining games, great. I see that as a success in the cannibalizing SEC. That's awesome. Do I think they'll do that? Not if Jackson Arnold's going to sit in the pocket all day. Not if the O-line's going to turn into Swiss cheese in the most important moments. So, Auburn, you're at number 2. And number 1, the most miserable fan base in college football right now are your Clemson Tigers. This was my national championship pick for this year, so I'm just as miserable as all of you guys are. You had 80% of the starters returning from a playoff team. Doesn't mean a thing. You have to use the portal! Dabo Swinney, you have to use the portal to win college football games in 2025. They got their field rushed against them. They got beat by Syracuse, who just got blown out by Duke. Cade Klubnik was supposed to be a top quarterback this year, and him and Garrett Riley go about together as well as oil and water right now. The rest of their season schedule isn't difficult, but I also didn't think beating Troy or Syracuse would be difficult. However, both of those games were struggles for them. If you know a Clemson fan, give them a hug. And if they don't know God, teach them the serenity prayer. That's all you can do in this point. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Clemson, I hope you're wise to know that this season is a wash. Let's move on to the playoff projections. My playoff projections, the top 12 seeds, if you will, in the country. So I'm not going to be predicting who's going to win the playoff on this episode tonight, but I am going to talk about where I think the playoff will be seeded whenever nut cutting time comes around. So right now at my number one spot, I have Ohio State. They beat Texas, and although Texas doesn't look amazing, they don't look like the Texas we've come to expect like last year. Texas is still a good team. That's still a good win. I don't care if it was at home. And also, last week, they went on the road to Seattle to beat Washington pretty soundly, I might add, covering the spread by over 10 points. So that's a really good win for Ohio State. And if you don't think that Washington team is good, then man, you just haven't watched enough college football, and that's okay. Not everybody watches college football. That is perfectly all right. But if you didn't think that, and if you didn't think Washington was good, then you need to reevaluate your college football standards. At number 2, I got Alabama. I think Alabama is clear to win the SEC this season. Do they have a tough schedule? Yes. Did they get pantsed by Florida State this season? Yes. Do I think they still can run the table and win? Absolutely. Alabama has Ty Simpson. I think he's their X factor this season. The marriage between him and Kalen DeBoer in that offensive system seems to look really good. And I believe in Bama. I think any team that can go to Georgia and beat Georgia in their building has a chance, a very solid chance, to win the SEC championship. And a lot of this DeBoer hate, a lot of this DeBoer frustrations, I think will begin to definitely reduce to a simmer. It was at a boil. It's going to reduce to a simmer. So give me Alabama at number 2. At number 3, I've got the Miami Hurricanes. I think the Miami Hurricanes, again, very good team. Carson Beck, multi-year starter doing multi-year things. And I'm excited to see where they go from here. They don't have a crazy difficult schedule, but they do play at Florida State this week, which is a little bit of a concern considering Miami hasn't really been out of their own building a whole lot this season. So I'm interested to see what they're able to do against a Florida State team that's going to be in wounded animal mode. So we'll see on that front. At number 4, I've got Oregon. I think Oregon honestly could be the number 1 team in the country, but I do give Ohio State the edge in a Big Ten championship game. And so with Oregon, man, Dan Lanning's a psychopath. Dante Moore, he's a baller at quarterback, and their defense is able to hold up. So Oregon at number 4, that's not a crazy take. At number 5, I have the conference championship winner of the Big 12, or at least who I think is going to win. I think Texas Tech is at number 5. Their defense has looked really solid. Their transfer portal additions, man, they've just come in there and they've plugged and played. It's just like plugging in a lamp that was already on. They look awesome. I think their coaching staff has done an incredible job with getting this team to gel. And whenever you're thinking about playing in Lubbock, what else do you really have to do besides play football and go to Chimmy's on the weekend? So give me number 5, Texas Tech. At number 6, I'm going to take Georgia. Georgia is not down and out by any means. Georgia still has a great quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. They have one of the best coaches in the country and one of the top programs in the nation. I think all of that is a recipe for success to make it back into the playoff this year. So give me Georgia at number 6. At number 7, making their second playoff in a row, I've got Indiana. And so with Indiana, man, they spanked Illinois. They bent them over. It looked like a 1960s classroom in there whenever they're putting discipline, whenever they're getting the wooden paddle off the board and embarrassing you in front of all your friends. Or at least that's what I like to think happened in the 1960s in classrooms. If you lived in the 1960s and were being taught, let me know in the comments below. But with Indiana, Fernando Mendoza, he's doing exactly what he needs to do from the quarterback position. And, man, their head coach, Coach Sig, man, he's stomping everybody out right now. So Indiana at number 7. At number 8, I've got Texas. I've got Texas at number 8, and I've got Texas at number 8 because I think their offense is going to pop, and they have one of the easiest schedules in the SEC. whenever you're looking at their schedule, they go to Florida. That's a pretty tough game. They go to Georgia, but they're also playing Kentucky. They're also playing Mississippi State. And no hate on Mississippi State at all. I think Mississippi State has made some great strides in their program, but they're playing at Mississippi State. And I'm not worried about that game. They're playing Vanderbilt at home, which we'll see how Vanderbilt does in a toxic environment away from home this week against Alabama. But Texas is just too marketable to not have in the playoff. It is my belief that no matter how good Texas is, no matter what their record looks like, if they're 9-3, if they're 10-2, unless they're 8-4 or worse, they will be in the playoff this year. And it doesn't matter how much skill they have on the field. What matters is the name on their quarterback's back. What matters is the Longhorn logo, that cream and the orange and that burnt orange. That's what matters to the playoff committee. They will do everything they possibly can to put Texas in if they possibly can. And don't get me wrong, Steve Sarkisian is one of the best coaches in college football. Texas's defense is one of the best in college football. But will they deserve to get into the college football playoff at the end of the day? Who knows? Maybe they'll go 11 and shut me up. But I'm just not sure on Texas. But I think with the fact that they have a Manning at quarterback, the college football playoff committee is going to want to put them in there. So Texas at number 8. At number 9, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech still has yet to lose a game this season. Georgia Tech has a Superman behind the center this season named Haynes King, who can, casually run it for 100 yards a game, who can do whatever he needs to do to will his team to a victory. And do I think they're going to make it super far in the playoff? Not necessarily. I think whenever you're running an option, running offense like that, eventually a bicycle is going to meet a brick wall. But I still think that bicycle is looking more like a motorcycle right now. It's looking like a Harley, and I think they're going to be able to ride it all the way to the ACC championship. And will they win the ACC championship? I don't think so, but I think their potential to be able to run the table for the rest of the season, I think that gets them in the playoff, and they've just got a great story. It would be an absolute dream to be able to watch Haynes King in the college football playoff, and that's not a dream of a guy just coming from Longview, Texas, who happened to go to high school with the guy. That's a dream for all of America. So, Georgia Tech at number 9. At number 10, got Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss could definitely be higher in these rankings. However, they do have a somewhat workable schedule. And I think on this workable schedule, eventually they will falter. Do I think they'll falter so heavily that they're out of the playoff? No, by no means do I think that. But I don't think they will be as high as the Georgias, as the Alabamas, as the Texases of the world. So give me Ole Miss at number 10. And at number 11, I'm going to take Texas A&M. With what Texas A&M has been able to do, with the juice they brought back to the program, with a coach that seems like he actually cares about the product on the field and establishing that A&M needs to be a gritty program to succeed, I believe Texas A&M can and should be in the playoff come December. So give me Texas A&M at number 11. And at number 12, the G6 team, I believe will be the University of North Texas. North Texas is currently undefeated, which looks better on a resume than maybe a South Florida, than a Boise State, who lost to South Florida, by the way. In case you didn't remember that from week 1, I did. But with North Texas in, not this week, but next week, they host the University of South Florida. And with this opportunity, if North Texas wins this game, I see no reason with their schedule why they couldn't run the rest of the table. So give me North Texas in that G6 spot. And then for the first 4 out, the teams that I really wanted to have in here, but just didn't feel like they'd be able to make the cut. Penn State's number 1. I think Penn State's in there, in that at Iowa, against Indiana, against Ohio State stretch. I just don't see them getting out of it unscathed enough to be able to make the playoffs, so they're going to be out of it. Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma's a really good team. I'm interested to see how John Mateer does whenever he gets back, but man, their schedule is brutal. They are going to run a gauntlet this season, and I just don't see them getting out of it alive. The third team, Iowa State. I think Iowa State's a great team. I think Iowa State's going to be playing in the Big 12 championship, but the Big 12 just doesn't have enough juice to be able to produce 2 active members in the college football playoff right now. So taking Iowa State out of there. And then last but not least, LSU. I believe LSU will still be a good team at the end of the season. I think this Ole Miss loss is a great opportunity to regroup and buck up and get ready for the rest of the season. But if they can't get the run game going, they're not going to get any of their games going. So LSU is going to be that 4th team that I have just barely missing the playoff. And so, like we do every week, let's go ahead and get into the dual screen setup. So what is the dual screen setup? The dual screen setup is if you're sitting in the living room on Saturday, you should always have 2 TVs on a Saturday. That's a non-negotiable. That's a basic fact of life. And you should have a bigger one and a smaller one. And with the dual screen setup, I'm going to tell you exactly what you should have on the bigger TV at any hour of the day and on the the smaller TV at any hour of the day. So starting up at 11, you're going to have Iowa State at Cincinnati on the big TV. If you're thinking about this game, who would you guess is favored? Would you be surprised if I told you that Cincinnati is favored by 1.5? Iowa State feels like they're waiting in the wings if Texas Tech falters in the Big 12 this season. I could easily see them making the playoff as a conference champion. And Cincinnati, last week they had a big win at Kansas, and I could see Cincinnati ranked with a win. But I am going to pick Iowa State. They have a seasoned QB in Rocco Becht with a team focused on the Big 12. I just don't think Cincinnati has hit that spot where they're ready to vie for those conference championships yet. So give me Iowa State in this game. Also on that smaller TV, I'm going to have Kentucky at Georgia. Don't forget that Kentucky still has a football team, but it won't really look like they have one on Saturday when Georgia just absolutely runs through them. Georgia's going to be playing with their hair on fire. Give me Georgia as the easy winner on this game. Honestly, I would maybe be looking into some G5 games that are going to be close once Georgia goes up by 20 at halftime. At 2:30, you're going to have Texas at Florida. And neither offense has really gotten going the way we expected them to. Coming into the season, we thought DJ Lagway and Arch Manning could have been 2 of the best quarterbacks in the nation. However, it just has not looked like that coming into the season for whatever reason. And again, if Florida's schedule is similar to Texas, I think we would still be talking about Florida as a potential playoff team. However, they played Miami. They played USF, which is a loss that doesn't look great in the grand scheme of things. Still a loss nonetheless. And they played LSU in the first game at night in Death Valley this year. That you're going to lose that game no matter what. I'm sorry, Florida. But again, Texas's defense is legit, and both teams are coming off a bye. And a lot of people think that Texas is going to come in and stomp them. I don't know if I believe that's going to happen. And I actually believe that if a few bounces go Florida's way, I could see Texas going back to Austin with a loss. Don't tell the masses I said that. Don't let any Texas fan know I said that. But I said it, and I'll stick by it. So, give me Florida in that game. Also, we have Vanderbilt at Alabama on your smaller TV. This is rat poison time for Alabama. This is a time when last year they're number 1 ranked in the nation. They go into Vanderbilt and boom, right back down to reality. Will DeBoer have his guys locked? They weren't locked in last year for this game. And Pavia and Vanderbilt, they've been ready to play every game. That team plays with a chip on their shoulder, a chip the size of a ruffle. But when I'm thinking about this game, Ty Simpson, Alabama's quarterback, he's been surgical this season. And Jam Miller at running back, he's a huge guy that is going to help be able to run that offense. And with Alabama being at home, that environment helps me feel comfortable picking Alabama at the end of the day. And then at 6:30 p.m., you're going to have Miami at Florida State. And before last Friday, this had Game of the Year written all over it. And we haven't really seen Miami away from home very much, which does give me a concern that Florida State could come in here and keep this game close. The spread is only 4.5, leaning towards Miami. And I trust Miami to get in and out of this spot. And Beck has the ability to lead a team into a hostile environment and escape. So I am going to take Miami in this game. But don't be surprised if you look up in the fourth quarter and say, man, Miami's only up by 3 and Florida State has the ball and they're driving. I wasn't expecting this. Well, I told you to expect it, so expect it. Last but not least, we have Mississippi State at Texas A&M. This is an interesting matchup. There's going to be a blackout in College Station, and I'm not talking about 19-year-olds going to Northgate. I'm talking about a little bit of swag on the field. I'm talking about the end zones being painted black. I'm talking about the logo on the center of the field being painted black. And this is an interesting time to do it because the blackout has been something that Mississippi State has been employing for a little bit now. So will State take that personally? I think the only way for Mississippi State to win this game is if they take this personally. But will the Aggies bite on the rat poison of beating Notre Dame, of beating Auburn? We'll see on Saturday. I think the Aggies are going to win, but in college football, crazier things have happened. With that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. I'm really excited to see what this Week 6 brings for all of us college football fans. For everybody involved with the show, make sure to follow us on social media at What Dudes Want to Hear, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you Saturday. Goodbye, guys.